I think you crashed your team call.
What was that? You talking to me, Louis?
Totally joined the wrong link. My bad.
Okay. Cool. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks everyone for joining. So today we're going to talk through some product logistics at a high level, and then we're going to take a deeper dive into release canvases and specifically what release canvases are, and then we'll go through an actual guided project. But first, I do want to start by addressing some documentation that we use and just an overall kind of process for how we are going to be developing products here. So we're going to be using a few different documents. So the first, which I'm sure you've already heard, is just like the release canvas. And the release canvas is a component of a larger document that we use to organize our ideas and what the projects that we're working on are, called a PVD, which stands for Product Vision Document. So first off, a process that we use in terms of building products is agile deployment here. We don't focus on building products from a waterfall development perspective. Here are some components of the agile development process, which I'm sure a few of you are familiar with, but if you're not, the first is defining the requirements. Second is defining the plan for actually developing iterations. And going through and creating designs for what we're going to actually build. And so going through an actual research and design process. Next, the development of the MVP typically, as well as going into the release and launching iterations to specific sets of users or a broader launch to an entire new population of folks. And then lastly, most importantly, tracking and monitoring. So how are we what systems do we have in place to make sure that we are achieving the goal that we set out to achieve with the product. So to do this, we use something called the PVD. And so the PVD includes the high-level criterion that defines the project. And so within the product vision documents, which you'll see in the second half of tonight's lecture, include the technical research. And so, objectively, all the research that went into play just as we were defining the technical stack to achieve the problem that we, or to achieve the solution for the problem that we set out to solve. Next, user research. Similarly, how do we know what to actually build? How do we know the problem is a problem? The user research indicates and communicates these pain points very clearly and objectively. And so we'll speak to some processes around that. I'm not going to go too in depth, but typically some methodologies that we use here are user interviews. So just having actual conversations with folks for about 20 minutes, half an hour, and asking them a range of questions and gauging a sense of the sentiment that they have around a particular problem, or surveys. And so taking a similar approach, defining questions and then just distributing those through some research platform, and then getting quantitative data around people's experience, and then using that to make decisions, educated decisions about what we need to build. Next, competitive analysis, just digging into what opportunities exist in the marketplace. So making sure that we have an understanding of where our competitors are, quote unquote, playing. So where our competitors, what solutions they have and what solutions they haven't built out yet for a particular problem or particular personas. And then lastly, the high level, the vision of the product and the objectives that we set out to achieve. So digging a little deeper into the visions and objectives. Specifically, when we are writing an objective, there are a few different categories that we can lean into. And so those are leaning into the form utility, which is making a product or a project easier to understand as part of the problem or the objective of the PVD, excuse me. the possession utility, so the objective of a product being cheaper to buy. Time utility, which is largely making things faster to get, whether that be a product or service, or helping someone achieve a specific job faster than the status quo. And lastly, the place utility, which speaks to the objective being to make something more accessible than other solutions. So most products and projects that we focus on time utility, which again is to help jobs be executed on faster, or allow folks to access certain things faster. So let's take a quick look at an example that already exists. And so there's a project from LabsPT11. And so we have city data comparison, and the objective here is to save time for users to compare aggregate information about cities. And so clearly the objective here speaks to time utility. And this team was focusing on how to save individuals time when they're making decisions about either moving to cities, or just understanding the city that they currently live in a little bit better, if they want to move into a different neighborhood, etc. So next, it's your turn. So in the Slack thread, I'll show a list of products, but I'd love for you all to take two and really quickly write an objective for each product. I'll leave these up for the next few minutes here. And if there are any questions about the products, feel free to write those questions out. I can answer those for you as well. Oh, so there's a thread for the lecture. It's right under the link in the LabsPT11 show. Awesome. Instacart allow users to more easily access groceries without having to spend the time themselves in the stores to shop for the products. It's great. Another Instacart example: improve availability of consumer goods for users via remote shopping and delivery. Awesome. Cool. Twitter trending, allow users to see what some of the more discussed topics are and what hashtags are in use in order to get in on the conversation. Cool. Spotify Discover, users take less time to find new music that they will love. Awesome. Cool. Awesome. These are great. So we'll move forward a little bit and talk about some of the components from within the PVD. And one which I alluded to a little bit earlier is the user research. And so without going too in depth here on the user research, but this can get, this is a very deep topic, but keeping it at a high level, everyone should be involved in the user research for their products and involved in creating a research plan. Well, the majority of the teams are going to be working on build-ons. There's only one greenfield team. So for the teams that are working on build-ons, you'll probably see some user research already in your PVDs. You can use that research, but if you are going to be expanding on future release canvases or future functionality that that is outside of the scope of the research, then you may have to revisit creating a research plan and do user research on the new features that you want to add. Next, you'll want to make sure that you place all of your research and the user research plan in your PVD. And so this will include specifically the survey. So either the interview questions. Ideally, you'll want to share the interview questions and a link to the survey. And if you're doing user interviews, links to potentially recordings or the transcriptions, so that everybody is on the same page about the user research, but also for future teams that they can resort back to those assets and make decisions as well. Next is competitor research. And so specifically within the competitor research portion of the PVD, we're going to want to try to understand where your product fits within the general landscape of the market, which I spoke to a little bit earlier. And so you're going to want to do competitor research on the features that you'll be adding. So ideally, you're going to want to find opportunities that exist in your market. And so even more specifically, develop features that are new, that are still solving the specific problem for your users while reaching your objective as well. And that'll give you a higher probability of gaining some usage and also potentially solving the problem a better way than other competitors. And lastly, all of your competitor research, you're going to want to make sure that you place that into your PVD. And there's a section for competitor research, which you'll see a little bit later. But it's just more of a container. It's just a page for the competitor research. So, whatever types of competitor research you want to include, feel free to explore this and add it to your PVD. This can include things like a SWOT analysis, which is a kind of a quadrant diagram that assesses the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and the threats of your product. Or I'm going through and pulling in screen grabs from a competitor's user experience, so that you have a point of reference of like, here are things that already exist in the market. Here's how we can be competitive by creating something different. But that's up to your team. Next is technical research. So the technical research should include the tech stack that you are using and the decision-making process behind that. So why you are using this particular tech stack. Kelly, yes, I can make sure to share this, this deck. You want to include why this tech stack, why you made that decision over others. And if you aren't making changes, so if you have a build on why you are justifying using the existing tech stack as well. And so when we do release canvas check-ins and just general office hour check-ins with your product stakeholder, you're going to want to make sure that you have an understanding of why you made the decisions that you made as it pertains to all aspects of your product. And so it's going to include obviously things like user research, competitive research, but here specifically technical research and why you're using specific technologies or not. Cool. And lastly, next there's a portion from the PVD that outlines the product owner and stakeholder. So I'll be the stakeholder for all the products. And so we'll make sure to check in with each team once a week. And I'll be here to make sure that I provide any kind of product direction or advice that you have on which direction that you want to take the products. You know, questions around what you should build first, how you should think about releasing certain iterations, etc. All those questions you can make sure to field to me, but we'll also put in place some formal check-ins, so we create space so you can ask all these questions. Cool. And with that, we'll pause for a few minutes, and I'll answer any questions that may have come up as they pertain to the PVD before we actually go into a guided project. Cool. So it's a question from Janessa. Are we allowed to make changes to the tech stack if we're building off of previous lab projects? Absolutely. You own this product now. And so as long as you can justify why you want to make those changes, you absolutely have the responsibility to change the product as you see fit. How long do we have to fill out the PVDs? So we will have release canvas check-ins next week on Wednesday, and the release canvas is a part of the PVD, and so we will be doing PVD check-ins on Wednesday as well, and that'll only really pertain to one team because they're a greenfield team, but the majority are using build-ons, and so if you are making changes, you can continue to do so. I'll make sure to create some time on Monday so folks can ask me questions as they pertain to their PVDs, but we will be doing checkoffs on Wednesday. Cool. All right, we'll move on to release canvases. So part of the PVD includes a release canvas. But before we dive into specifically what a release canvas is, let's just go back and try to assess the problem that the PVD, or excuse me, that the release canvas solves for. So in the same thread in Slack, answer this question really quickly. How do you know a product is successful? Okay, users sign up, people want to use it, usage metrics, it works and looks good, users keep coming back. Great, if users like it, growing user base, great reviews, large database of users. Money, that's great. Yes, lots of users. It accomplishes its goal, that's great, Dominique. Outperforms competing similar products, cool. Solves a problem effectively and efficiently. Awesome, these are great answers. And one category, if you had to bucket these, is that the users that use the product, it's the product solves a specific problem for them, or rather, just that we're assessing the behavior of the users. And so, for us to make sure that we're doing that properly, we use release canvases, and in an effort to make sure that we are solving problems for users, we use release canvases to make sure that we are always aligned on the problem and objective that we set out, which is determined in the PVD. And so specifically, what is a release canvas? So a release canvas is a set of features that solves a specific user problems. And we'll get into an example in a second, but at a high level, it is just another document within the PVD that outlines all the features that we want to build and make sure that they are aligned with solving a specific problem for users. And it includes how we're going to measure success as well. Excuse me. So the first thing that we need to do before we start our release canvases is to start with the problem defined by user research. And so this comes from the PVD, but this is the starting point, the impetus of how we decide what we're going to build for each release canvas. And so what we want to do is to come up with a set of features to solve for that problem. And in addition to coming up with a set of features to solve that problem, we want to make sure that we are coming up with milestones for how we're going to measure success. And these milestones are communicated in the release canvas as key results. And so these key results, are analogous to KPIs actually, but we want them to be objective and metric focused to make sure that we are aligned and we have some measuring posts for, so we have an understanding of whether or not we got close to solving a problem or not. So let's take a look. So here is a vision statement for a PVD for a product called Hackathon Portal. And so Hackathon Portal is, as you can see here, it's a product that's, it's a labs product that some of our students created that allows folks to access hackathons and try to organize participants and judges. Is a difficult problem, and it's a hectic process that they noticed. And so this is the PVD that they created to organize their thoughts around this particular problem and what they wanted to solve. So as you can see here, they outline the core problem, as well as some of the problem side effects and the objectives that they wanted to focus on. And so some of the PVDs that you'll have or get access to will include this sort of vision section, some won't. But the most will look exactly like this, which outlines the problem, the mission, which it could be mission or objective, the tech stack, which I alluded to a little bit earlier, and then all of the product information, as well as the research information, and all of the design components as well. And so this one's really organized well, and then you can link to the deployed product as you get towards releasing specific iterations. And then you can go into architecture details, and then obviously we'll focus on the release canvases in a second. But the PVD vision and the objective that this particular company is working on is solving problems for organizing and operating hackathons. So before we move on, I just want to show you what the release canvases look like. And so here is a release canvas for the Hackathon Portal product. And we'll actually go through together and fill out the rest of this really quickly. And so one of the problems that Hackathon Portal is addressing is that judges cannot view and score projects in a centralized location. So we're actually going to work backwards and create some key results here that we can shoot for to make sure that we are addressing this particular problem in this particular release canvas. So for this release canvas, we want to focus on helping judges view and score projects more easily in a centralized location. And so what are some key results that we can use to make sure that we are being successful in this release to make sure that judges can view and score projects in a centralized location? You feel free to chime in the Slack. Create a database, bounce rate, Okay, dedicated page for judges only. Cool. Any other suggestions or ideas, rather? The dashboard. Cool. These are really good starts. We want to zoom in a little bit more and try to be even more granular. And so one idea I have is that we can track the sentiment. So first off, we can ask judges before we release or in different cohorts, we can do a little A/B test of like providing a new flow that's providing access to the scores of the projects as like an email thread, or we can actually create these things as like some part of the end product experience, and then test that against folks that don't have access to that flow and see if they're happy with that. They're happy with that solution. And so this 75% of including scoring rubric on the same page that provides easy access from where the projects are stored. I like that. So I think one that is really important here is just to try to get to the root of the problem. And the problem is that the judges cannot score, they can't view and score projects. And so a way that we know that we're being successful is tracking the percentage of judges that submit their scores or that do score projects. And so like an aggressive or rather ambitious key result here would be like 100% of judges score projects. And that's rather ambitious for our first release canvas and our first attempt at trying to solve this problem. So realistically, we can be a little bit conservative in our estimation and do something like 50% of judges view and score projects. And something else that's, there's clearly a relationship here. So we're trying to solve for judges being able to view and score their projects. So making sure that we do a good job of making sure that the judges that can view the projects are actually scoring the projects as well. So something like 100% of judges that view projects submit scores. And so things to note here with these key results are that, first off, they're objective. We'll know whether or not we achieve these goals or not. And so some may require some additional work, like the very first one, we'll have to send out a survey before and after, or create an A/B test. But you want your key results to be objective so that you know specifically what your North Star is and where you're heading and what success looks like. And then, after you release, you have something to measure against, right? The second piece is that there is, they are quantitative to some degree, and that there is some metric that again, is objective. Sometimes when we are using qualitative key results, that means that well, that doesn't necessarily mean, but often they are rather nebulous in that we don't necessarily know whether or not we achieve that goal. And so an example of that is, even if I remove this, this is a healthy, it's a pretty good key result that judges agree that they enjoy the new user flow. But we don't know, like, does that mean, all that means is that, like, more than one or more than, some plural, some multiple amount of judges agree that they like the new user flow. And that doesn't necessarily know that we are doing a good job for the broader population of the users that we're trying to solve this problem for. So it's helpful to be objective and try to be metric based, and create quantitative key results as often as you can. Cool. So let's transition a little bit and get into some solutions. So what are some potential solutions? I know a lot of y'all kind of went solution centric already when I was asking for the key results. So that may be helpful here again, but we'll start by taking some suggestions for feature lists. So what features do you think we can create to achieve these key results? Cool. Private dashboard, judges. And cool. So the user story here is, as a judge, I can sleep here. Cool. What else do we have? Make site mobile first. Yeah, so I see incentives for submitting scores, mobile notification. Cool. We can, something around notifications. The user story here is, as a judge, I want to receive notifications for hackathon submissions. Cool, we'll move on from there. And so within the feature details column, you'll want to just very quickly go through what's included in this feature set. And so this private dashboard will include things like most likely authentication, like login. We'll have to, there'll be data displays with within the dashboards, etc. I'm not going to add lo-fi designs here, but when you do go through and create these release canvases, you should create like lo-fi prototypes to include here, just so there is some sort of visual representation of what you want to build. And this doesn't need to be anything, more than just like a paper sketch. So if you do want to just sketch something out like on a piece of paper analog and take a photo of it and use it as a lo-fi prototype, that's perfect. That's even better because it allows you to execute on the idea, communicate the idea visually, which is the most important thing. And then you can communicate that to your team and then move forward with how you want to plan actually building that out. For teams that may have designers and UX on their team, if you do want to very quickly, this is not about being perfect. This is about executing on the idea quickly. So it's more about speed. So if you do want to use like Figma just to, or like InVision freehand to just put some lo-fi wireframes together, you can go ahead and do so. Cool. So in addition to, after defining out the solution in the feature set, the last piece of the release canvas is the objective supported. And so the objective supported, again, really comes from two places. So first, the problem that we're solving, as well as the PVD. Right, and so within the PVD, within our objective section, we've gone ahead and outlined 3 objectives that we want to focus on for this hackathon portal. And so the first is to save users time to sign up and submit hackathon projects. The second is to save judges time to score projects. And the last is to save admin time to organize hackathon processes. And so when you are creating the release canvases, you're going to want to make sure that each release canvas is aligned with an objective from the PVD. And so specifically, this release canvas that we're working on, tracks back to that second objective, which is to save judges time in scoring. So before we actually hand it over to you all, we're going to create some teams and you're going to create release canvases yourselves. I do want to pause for maybe a minute or two to see if there are any questions that anyone has. Yes, you can absolutely access the release canvas I made. I'll share that link after the lecture. In addition, all the PVDs that you all have access to, or if you haven't already taken a look, we'll have access to, they have release canvas templates in there as well. Cool. So for the breakout session, I'm going to share this link with you. And so this is a link to a product, a Labs product called Citrix. And so Citrix is an app that gives access to aggregated information about different American cities, such as housing, population, jobs, etc. And so there will be a URL here. So I'm going to drop this link into the LabsPT11 channel. And so what I would like is we're going to create breakout rooms. And so I want each team to go through and create a feature list for this particular product and the problem. So I've gone ahead and given you some information. You can take a look at the sites, which is outlined here if you want to take a look at the current production site as well. But I'm going to share this link. I would like each team to make a copy of this document, fill out the feature lists section, as well as the key results section down here, and create a measurement plan. And so how you're going to go out and make sure that you're going to measure the key results. And the problem that we're going to be focusing on, I've already gone ahead and outlined here. And so the problem is that people cannot find information about the future of cities. And so that's whether that's where they want to move to next, or just information about what's happening in their city currently. Louis, could you make breakout rooms for me, please?
What's that, Dan?
Or Frank, could you make breakout rooms, please?
Yeah. Did you want to make me a co-host, and I can do that for you?
Oh yeah. Give me 1 second.
I need the power.
Unlimited power.
Exactly. All right.
Sorry, I'm a big Star Wars nerd, so I couldn't resist.
Yeah, me too. Where is my breakout room button?
Is it not there?
Yeah, I did something. I feel like this is different. I don't see it.
All right, cool. Here, I'll do it right now.
I'm sorry.
No. It's not your problem.
Sorry about that.
So Zoom needs a better user interface.
Sure
Yeah,
does.
yeah, I've done this so many times, and I don't know why. I guess there's a new update I'm using.
Cool. So I just created the rooms, and so afterwards, please share your doc in the thread, and then we'll critique when we're finished.
Should the TLs join them too?
Yes, please. That'd be helpful.
Hey, what's up?
Not much. How are you doing?
I'm good. Just had to set up like all the Figma files for UX.
Oh, cool.
And then so this meeting's going to overlap with the UX kickoff. Just going to have all the UX leave at 8, so you guys are aware.
We'll wrap up before 8 for sure.
Oh, okay.
It was scheduled till 7:30. I mean, we may
So-
go over, but I'm trying to wrap up by then.
7:30, 9:30? Or I think it
Oh,
was
sorry.
till 9. Yeah.
I'm in California.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. I mean, oh, so they're just working on their PVDs after this call till 9. Got it.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Be right back.
Hi, Devin and Kayla. Did you all get invites? Devin, Kayla?
Did you see the message from Devin?
No.
He's having trouble unmuting. Yeah, see?
Hey, Devin, go to your settings and check to see what you're putting for your output for your microphone. You might have something set differently if you have more than one mic. We still can't hear you. Are you on Windows or Mac? Mac, okay.
Should try turning it off and turning it on again.
Yeah, you can go to restart your Zoom to see if that works.
Can anyone hear me?
There we go.
No way. Oh my goodness. When I came back in, it wasn't working. Then I got like an alert from my OS asking for like admin stuff. These new Zoom's been getting like super exposed for their vulnerabilities with everybody going remote. So they're running all these updates. So it's like every other day there's some new Zoom feature like not working or
Yeah.
Cool. Is there any way to get thrown into breakout room? Sorry, when I was having all that trouble, I like didn't click the link.
Yeah, give me a second.
Thank you.
There you go. You should receive one.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Hey Dan, so both UX designers on Omega 2020 just reached out to me. They both want to get off that project. And do you think we could just switch UX to another team? Because they do not like Sudoku, and I don't blame them. They're not really thrilled about it. They have no passion for it.
Yeah. Okay. So
Posted
sorry.
in
What
that,
was your question?
Can they switch to another project without UX since both designers want to leave?
Um, let me sync with Jake.
Okay.
But theoretically, yes.
Okay.
And there's like, yeah, Jake and I kind of talked through this loosely yesterday before he made the assignments. But there are other projects that need UX. So, yeah, let me sync with him and I'll get back to you.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Oh shit. Oh, excuse me. This invite wasn't supposed to go to 9. That's weird.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I think we could just think what he meant to do is like PVD work for the remainder of the time. So this was scheduled till 9 at night. So
Yeah. Oh, I didn't do that. I don't know how that got changed, but we don't need all that time.
so I guess we could just have them break out to their teams.
Well, yeah. I mean, actually, ideally, that I would like to give them 20 minutes to work on this, like on like in the breakouts right now, just because like
Okay.
it does take a little while if it's the first time you're going through. So maybe we can just add an additional 10 minutes, and then I'll do the critique, and then they can work in their teams if they're not in UX.
Cool.
That's weird. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, do you see what we just got to post in the main channel?
Yeah, I think he's
Yeah.
responding to someone shared that Wikipedia link.
Okay. Yeah, I think he has UX on his team, so UX will be doing the user research there.
I'm not sure what his point is here.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
There.
I think he's emphasizing that user research is important, and you can buy case studies from Harvard.
Yes, that's true.
Also, I would pause it during the breakouts because it's going to be a larger file for it to convert.
Okay, thanks. Whoops. Awesome. So for the next 5 minutes or so, I'll go through and I'll critique a few of these release canvases. So I'll start with Batuhan, yours first. Oops. Or actually, did everyone make sure that that anyone can access the link that they shared? I'll try another one. All right, cool. No. Cool, awesome. So this is the one that Simone sent over. So a feature list for solving the problem that people cannot find information about the future of their city. So the first feature list is to list mayors and politicians. User stories. So as a user, I want to be able to find information about the political climate, politicians and their views, a description of the feature, display politicians and which side they link to, and specifically major policies that they have spoken on. Okay. Job industry predictions, outlooks. That's great. As a user, I want to see specific jobs and trends, like where a specific industry will be in X amount of years in the city. That's cool. That's good context. Description, a number of jobs to be added or percent increase over different industries over the next 5 to 10 years. That's cool. Unemployment trends. As a user, I wanted to see unemployment trends, a graph that displays trends that from the last few years of unemployment rates. And then lastly, filters. And so as a user, I may not have cities in mind, so it would be nice to have a filter search based on the things that are important to me. I like that. That's a really good feature. So display filter options at the top of the user, at the top for the user to adjust based on their preferences, like job industry, trends, unemployment trend. Cool, awesome, that's really good. So some of the key results here, 50% of users decided to move to a city after viewing unemployment trends or related information. Cool. Next, 75% of users found the information they were looking for. Cool, so how are we going to measure these things? So first, filter options are saved to account, and devs can see the heat marks. So places where users clicked on most, okay, heat maps, got it. To see where, which filters are being used most. Okay, so I guess that tracks to the second key result. And the second measurement plan, a yes or no prompt asking users if they're satisfied with their results and found information. That's pretty good. I think one thing that is missing in this measurement plan is some communication or process around measuring whether or not individuals moved. And so one of the first key results is that 50% of users decided to move to a city after viewing unemployment trends or related information. but there's nothing in the measurement plan that speaks to how we're going to track whether or not a user has moved, and in particular has used because of the information that they found on Citrix. And so there are probably a few different data algorithms that we can use. So there's probably just some heuristics around just tracking IP addresses and then just like location over X amount of time, but some thought process, or you might as well even just want to ask the question of, hey, it may seem like you're logging in from a different geography. Have you moved? Like, the next time they actually log into Citrix. But some process around the plan to track that data will close this out. But this is really strong though. This is a really good first attempt. Nice work. And cool. So as it pertains to release canvases, next Wednesday we'll go through release canvas checkoffs. And so between now and then, you can get together with your teams and work on your PVDs and your release canvases. I will make sure to create some office hours for all of you sometime next week, most likely on Monday and Friday. So you can reach out to me and then we can just actually schedule calls with your teams. And you can ask any questions and we can talk through anything before we have the checkoff sessions on Wednesday. But with that, oh, sorry, really quickly, on Wednesday for the release canvas checkoffs, each team will need to come up with 3 release canvases. And so the first release canvas is typically the one that we definitely get through. The second and third release canvas, it depends on kind of the momentum and the velocity of each of the teams, but the very first release canvas, make sure that that's the one that we're going to be working on initially, and we're most likely going to complete as well. So you're probably going to want to front load the largest challenges that you're going to want to work on and that you're excited to execute on during that very first release canvas. And with that, I'll open it up for questions.
When you say across functions, you mean that if you're talking about between UX, web and the like.
Data
right?
science, yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
Data science, okay, cool.
Correct.
Do those have to be specific to each one, or just make sure that they just go across all 3 of the different functions?
Just that they are cross-functional, and so that they go across each of the functions, and so that there is a data component, there is a web component, there is a UX component. Yeah.
Gotcha.
For those without UX members or UX developers, will we rely on the Figma, the previous Figma file to create
Exactly.
stories?
Yes. Cool. Well, thank you all. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And again, I'll be making sure that I'm available for office hours early next week, and then we'll reconvene next Wednesday for the PVD and the release canvas checkoffs. And I know that there's a UX meeting that's starting in 14 minutes, but for the remainder of the evening, you can get together with your teams and start to plan and start to discuss and do research around the PVDs and what you may want to change, and then just generally do PVD research and release canvas research for the rest of the night. Oh, 2 in the chat. Cool. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.